Terry Blackburn here. I have a property portfolio worth over £10 million. I've built and sold multiple companies, some in seven-figure deals. I wrote two successful books, one won awards all over the world. All of these awards behind me are national and international awards for some of my companies. Coach people one-on-one, and I run masterminds. Now, if you like what I talk about in this session, if you listen to my podcast, you follow us on Instagram, you follow the YouTube page, if you like what I talk about and I resonate with you and you can relate to me, jump on my website, which is terryblackburnproperty.com. All of the different services that I have is on there. I'd love to work with you and I'd love to help you get to where you want to be, whether that's in property, whether that's in business, whether it's in sales, goal setting, whatever it is that you want to achieve and want to learn. I'm your man. Enjoy the rest of the episode and speak soon.
So 30 quickfire questions all around sales conversions, closing techniques, improving your sales process, recruiting salespeople. We're going to answer 30 questions from my following and regularly asked questions for people who are involved in sales. So let's get into it. Okay. First question. What's the number one reason people don't buy from you without even realizing it as a salesperson? Okay. The number one reason, that's very dependent on the person, but there's some key things here. Are you likable enough? Are you saying the right things and asking the right questions? Most people in sales don't ask the right questions. They just follow a bit of a process, be likable and do a few little bits here, bits there, present the product. Yeah. The questions are the key to sales. Good questions to identify pain and problems that the customer has, the dream outcome, the desired outcome that they want to get to. Once you've got that, you can build that up and emphasize on that and then come up with a solution, your product that solves their problem, gets them away from pain towards the dream outcome. Then you will close so many more people. And this is a skill. Questions are a skill that so many people just do not know how to do. Next question. What's the easiest way to increase sales conversions today? Killer questions, asking the right questions, your tone of voice, how you ask the questions, how your voice sounds when you're doing it, your body language, having a good script, practicing these things, learning sales techniques. If you're in sales and you never had sales training, you can't be expected to be elite. But there's loads of things you can do. Depends on where you are right now, right? Next question. How can you double your closing rate without changing your script? I don't know who asked this question. Depends on how good your script is, right? You can double your closing rate, and I've worked with people who've done that. But a lot of that was down to changing the script. So it was adding good questions and better questions. It was having a good tone of voice when you're actually speaking to customers, sounding like someone who's credible, who's got authority, who knows what they're talking about and the like. That impacts conversions massively. Your questions do, how you close does. And of course, your product matters as well, how good the product is, right? And how good your leads are. Yeah, there's a lot to it. Next question. What's the biggest mistake salespeople make in the last 2 minutes of the call? The last 2 minutes of the call is your close. So the biggest mistake when they get to the close is they haven't asked the right questions in the first place. They haven't emphasized pain and dream outcomes. They haven't presented their solution properly. They haven't came across as likable. And if that doesn't happen, by the time you get to the close, you're not going to close. You've got to have emphasized pain, presented the solution, and came across as likable. All of that has to have happened before the close. Yeah. What's the one closing technique that works even when a prospect says, I need to think about it? If a prospect says they want to think about it, right? The research shows, and I've read this in numerous books and in my own experience as well, that when they say they don't want to think about it, it's because they don't understand. You've over-talked, you've said too much, or you haven't explained it properly, or you haven't pressed on the pain and identified the problem so you can present the solution. Yeah, I want to think about it just means that they don't understand, but they're not going to say, sorry, Terry, I don't understand, because they'll look stupid. So their get out is, I want to have a think about it. Yeah. How do you handle, I need to speak to my partner is an objection? Few things. Depends on how hard you want to go on this. A hard technique is, I need to speak to my partner first. Okay, so when you're at the bar and you're going to have 4 pints. Yeah. So do you ring your missus and ask if you can have a fifth? No, of course I don't. She's not really going to miss. You don't need to ask her permission to do things, right, do you? Or you can say, when you do your weekly shopping at Tesco's, how much do you spend? 100 quid. So if you spent 110 quid next week, would you ring your partner and ask, is it okay if I spend an extra £10 at the shops? Or should I go and put some of my chicken back? Yeah. You wouldn't do that, would you? So do you really need to ask your partner? Depends on where you want to go with this, right? What's the best way to get a prospect's trust? What's the best way to get a prospect to trust you in under 60 seconds? It's going to be quite tough to get trust in 60 seconds, but there's definitely things you can do. Your introduction, your body language, your eye contact. You're smiling at them. You're coming across as likable. You say the right things. It's not just the words that you say, it's how you say it, your tone of voice. All of that happens very, very quickly, right? And you only make a first impression of somebody once. And they instantly judge you based on the way that you look, the way that you speak, the way that you act, and what you say. Yeah? So you can definitely make somebody like you or warm to you subconsciously in 60 seconds. And you're just going to start to gain trust by the questions that you ask throughout the process. Yeah? How do you get someone who's on the fence to buy? If they're on the fence, you haven't asked enough or the right questions, you haven't identified the pain and pleasure, you haven't identified the dream outcome, and you haven't presented your solution well enough, because if you did, they wouldn't be on the fence in the first place. Yeah? What is the one question that instantly tells you if a prospect is serious? I mean, I don't think there is one question, yeah, but you get a feeling during a sales call if someone is serious or not. But again, it all comes down to questions. Are you asking the right questions throughout the call to identify the pain points, the dream outcomes, so you can tie in the solution? And if you've done that, like, they should be serious. And if they're a time waster, then you cut it dead early. If you know that they've got no money and they can't afford the product, then you cut the call early. Like, value your own time, get rid of them. And you will get some prospects like that, right? And don't be having loads of rapport with them and still trying to sell to someone who's not qualified or serious. It's a waste of time. Next question. How do you turn objections around into reasons to buy? Again, it goes back to the questions. If you've asked the right questions, you will reduce the amount of objections you get anyway. But if someone raises an objection, a little tip is feel, felt, found. I don't know if I want to go ahead today, Terry. Understand how you feel. Most people who I speak to have actually felt the same. They weren't sure if they wanted to go ahead today either. But what we found is this, and you come up with a solution, depending on your product. What we found is once they went ahead, they really enjoyed this, or they really benefited from this, or they got this result quite quickly. Understand how you feel. Other people felt the same, but what I found is this. Feel, felt, found overcomes a lot of objections. Next question. What is the most underrated part of a sales process that most people ignore? Questions, tone of voice. And everyone gets hung up on the close. How do I close the deal? What do I say? But closing of a deal happens before you actually try and close it. You've identified the right problems, the right pain points, positioned the solution properly in the right way. You've said it in the nice tone of voice. You come across as likable. The close is easy. It's easy because the deal is almost done. They're mad not to go ahead when you've identified enough pain and positioned the solution properly. Yeah? So that's what I'd say. How do you follow up without being annoying, right? Do not be scared to follow up, right? Follow up as many times as needed. You are not being annoying. If your product solves their problem, yeah? If you have the solution to their problem, you're not annoying them, you're helping them. So follow up regularly, right? Don't be shy and don't think you're annoying anybody because you're not. Your job as a salesperson includes following up. And we used to schedule in time every single day to follow up. Yeah. What's the fastest way to shorten your sales cycle? Better questions throughout the call to identify more pain, more pleasure, better dream outcomes in the solution. If you get that part of the sales call right, like that in itself gets the close done, gets the product sold, because the problem is so big and the pain's so big that they have to solve it. It shortens it. But you can shorten the report. You don't need to explain everything about the product, all of the bells and whistles and the T's and C's. You just explain what's needed. Yeah. Don't overdo it in a sales call, because sometimes you can talk yourself out of the sale. Next question. How do you stop losing sales to "I'll get back to you"? So if people are saying "I'll come back to you," one tip on that is don't leave that open. Say, right, well, let's book in a follow-up call and you book it in the diary if they do need time to think. But if you're getting that a lot, look within, right? It's not the customers, it's you, because you are obviously doing something wrong in the sales process if you're getting that all the time. If you've identified the pain and the pleasure properly and presented the solution properly, you won't get too much of that anyway, because they'll be so motivated to buy that they won't want to get back to you. Next question. What's the one thing you must do before every sales call? Before the call, I would say prepare. So I used to get all my sales team 15 minutes on a day, at the start of the day before their first sales call, practice the script, have a coffee, have a water, get in the zone, right? Because you don't want to be warming up in your first sales call. You already want to be warmed up before you do it. There might be an element of research that you need to do on the customer or the product before the call, depending on the industry you're in, but prepare. Next question. How do you warm up cold leads so they are ready to buy? Had a similar question like that. So again, if you want to warm them up, then depending upon your nurturing system, the source of the lead, all of these type things, you can send them an email before the sales call. This is what we're going to go through. Consider this. Send them a video to watch before the sales call. But you can warm up cold leads in the call. It hugely depends on your industry, right? What's the biggest difference between the average salespeople and the elite salespeople? The biggest difference, I'd have to say, is mindset. And I know that's cliche, but it is. It's right. Like, average salespeople just don't think the same as elite. They're not hungry. They're not driven. They're not just fearless. They don't pick up the phone. And a lot of these average salespeople out there, they don't follow the process. They don't ask good questions. They haven't got a good tone of voice. Whereas the elite people have got all of that. Yeah. How do you make a prospect feel like they need what you are selling? Questions. I know I've said this loads. Questions are the key. Questions are key. Questions are king. Questions are everything. Once you get the questions right and you design those killer questions for your business that work, like, then the customers will want and need the product, because you're going to ask these good questions that create desire, identify pain and pleasure, create a dream outcome, present the solution. It's all questions. Yeah. What's the best way to get referrals? Said that one already. How do you get people to buy without pressuring them? You should never pressure anybody, right? Never, ever, ever. Sales is not a dirty word. Sales is not manipulating anybody. Sales is not pressuring anybody to buy anything, right? Let's just make that really, really clear. But the best way to get them to buy is, again, your process, your questions, being likable, being trustworthy, showing your authority, saying the right things, asking the right questions, having a good product, presenting in the right way. It's a big answer to that question, right? It's all of that mashed together makes people want to buy your product or service. Next question. How do you spot a sales superstar before you hire them? So the main things again are attitude, open-mindedness, and aura. If they have those three things, the rest of sales is learnable. You can teach how to close. You can teach how to build rapport. You can teach questions. You can teach referrals. All of that, you can learn that, right? But if they haven't got a good aura, you can't a lot of time change that. If they've got a bad attitude and they don't fit in with your company culture, or they're not likable, A lot of time you can't change that. And if they're not open-minded enough to listen to you, embrace the product, the script, the process, then they're not right for you. But the superstars have got that. And a lot of them trust your gut. Sometimes you just think, he's the one. What's the biggest mistake people make when recruiting salespeople? Interviewing, onboarding process, rushing the onboarding process, recruiting the wrong people, recruiting friends, recruiting on experience. I don't think that's right. Certain industries, yes, but majority of the time, it's not about experience. It's about other stuff. Attitude, aura, open-mindedness. 1 second. Next question. How do you train salespeople to be the most effective? It's not worded very well, that question. But how do you train them to be the most effective? I think varied training, weekly training sessions, not monthly, regular training. We used to do training sessions 2, sometimes 3 times per week in my sales companies to keep people constantly motivated. So in order to do that, you need a good training matrix. You need varied content from different modules to product knowledge to closing to report to introductions to questions. It needs to be varied. You need leaderboards. You need incentives. You need a good culture. You've got to make them want to work there, enjoy working there, the ability to make good money, getting recognition. There's a lot to training salespeople and managing salespeople for sure. And that's one of the main things actually when I'm working with a business and helping them build and scale their sales team. That's one of the biggest parts of it is how are they being trained and what they're being trained on, how regular is it and what's the management side of that look like. It's a big, big part of growing your sales team. How do you create a culture where your sales team actually want to win? Want to win, you could have individual targets, you can have company targets. You can have incentives. So if we hit this target as a group of people, as a sales team, we all go for a night out or we'll go for a weekend away, we'll go to this place. If anybody hits this particular target, you get this bonus structure. You get this cash bonus, a company car, whatever, yeah? The way to sort of build a culture so they want to win is team incentives and a culture of like, you don't want any dead wood in a sales team. A culture of winners it's a lot easier to build that culture if there's no shit in the team, if that makes sense. There's no dead wood in the team. If everyone's a winner, you've got a culture of winners and then everybody wants to win. And then you're incentivizing them with recognition and money. Like you're onto a winning thing there for sure. What's the secret to keeping great salespeople from leaving your team? Great question. So treating them well enough so they don't want to leave is one, because some people will leave for the same money elsewhere just because they don't like working in a particular company, right? And that's because of the way that they treat. So treating them well with respect, giving them recognition, good bonus and commission structure, good product, having fun, having a laugh. They want to enjoy working there, regular training sessions, keeping them involved, keeping them, making them feel valued and appreciated is a huge point on this. And if you do that, not that many people will leave. You'll always lose some, but not many people will leave if you lock them in properly. How do you get salespeople to take action instead of making excuses? A lot of salespeople do make excuses, right? Let's just be clear. When you do a one-on-one with them, they haven't hit the target. It's not their fault normally. It's the lead. It's something else, right? But you inspire them to take action. You motivate them to take action with incentives, with commission structures, with bonuses, with recognition. That's how you get them to take action. You can't force anybody to do anything, but you can inspire them to do stuff and encourage them to do stuff. Yeah. Next question. What's the best way to get underperforming salespeople? I'll say that again. What's the best way to get underperforming salespeople to step up? The best way to get underperforming salespeople to step up is, first of all, if they're too underperforming, you need to get rid. 3 months in a row, not hitting target, see you later. But sometimes they just need the handheld. Sometimes they need more training. Sometimes they need man managed. Sometimes they need individual training. Sometimes they need encouragement, incentives, finding out what makes them tick and then playing on that, incentivizing that. If it's money, for example, show them a way to make more money. If they just really want to feel recognized and valued, then it's nights out, it's meals out, it's company awards dues, it's employee of the month, it's whatever. So you can just encourage them to step up and do better through money and recognition, yeah, and training.